to another Faster Masters Rowing Radio. I'm Rebecca Caro, and I'm joined today by Marlene. Marlene, you're just back from camp. How did it go?
Oh, great. We had 2 really full camps at Craftsbury Sculling Center, and I had a chance to work with some terrific coaches, Larry Gluckman, Jeannie Friedman, who is the woman who started rowing at Boston University, my alma mater. And we had a lot of Boston University women there. We had 4 generations of Boston University women who are currently coaching. So it was kind of a great reunion week from a coaching standpoint. And we had terrific weather. The leaves are changing here in Quebec and Vermont. So it's definitely feeling like autumn head racing season is upon us. So.
Which leads us neatly to our first topic for today. We're going to talk about recovery strategies for masters. So there are 2 main recoveries, active recovery and passive recovery. Which shall we talk about first?
Well, let's kind of define the difference between active recovery and passive recovery. And first of all, you can think about recovery on a number of different terms. There is recovery between workouts, day-to-day recovery. There's recovery between training phases, which might be each week. You have a rest day or an active rest day. There's recovery between phases of training. For example, at the end of the head racing season, you may want 3 to 4 weeks of easy training. So active recovery means that it's very light training. It could be walking. If it were walking, I would say your active recovery session would not be more than, say, 30 or 40 minutes of walking. It could be 30 or 40 minutes of easy rowing, meaning your heart rate is under 100 beats per minute. Very, very light activity. It's basically for circulation and movement. It could be stretching. It could be a yoga class if you take yoga, but it should be something that does not really raise your heart rate. It's more for general circulation and movement, and to basically help flush metabolic byproducts out of your muscles and your bloodstream, so that you feel refreshed. Passive recovery has the same purpose, to flush metabolic waste products out of your muscles, maybe give you a mental break. Passive methods could be massage. It could be taking a whirlpool. It could be going to the movies. Really, it's really like no activity. If there's any activity, somebody is performing a massage for you. Nutrition fits into recovery, but for today, we'll talk about recovery methods from the point of view of like physical or non-physical versus from the nutritional point of view. So passive recovery is sleep. That's your number 1 passive recovery method, and probably the most effective, followed by massage, and then being maybe a couch potato for an afternoon. But it's very, very low key, and recovery really does mean taking it easy. It doesn't mean, oh, I think I'm going to go to the gym and lift weights because I'm not rowing. That's not a recovery session. So in your regular training, between rows or practices, it's always good to include some passive recovery. That's your sleep. That is your stretching. Easy rowing could be included at the end of a workout to give you a little bit of active recovery at the end of a workout to kind of wind down. If you're at a regatta, and we have FISA World Masters Regatta coming up very soon. We've just concluded some of our North American championships, which are also 4-day regattas. During a long regatta, you may want to include some active recovery after your races. If you have the ability to stay on the water after you finish your race, it's really good to paddle out for 4K or 6K or say 20, 30 minutes if you have the ability to keep the boat and you don't have to get back to the dock right away. That's an excellent way to flush some of the lactic acid out of your muscles, just to kind of wind down, get full recovery after your race before you go in.
So just as a little point there, I generally recommend people row at about 40% pressure. So it's not quite half pressure, but you are moving through the full stroke cycle, full range of movement. You're just not pushing very hard.
Exactly. Very, very, as I said, like keep your heart rate under 100, very, very, very easy. If, for example, you're not able to do that, what I suggest is when you get out of the boat, go for a walk. If that's all that's available for you, or if there's an erg, you might be somewhere where you have an erg access. It's the same thing, just easy, 40% easy, just going through the motion, flushing out the muscles, getting some circulation. And I would try to do that right after each race, if possible, or at the end of your regatta day, say if you're hot seating from one race to another. Another thing could be, if you go back to your hotel, go for an easy swim. That's a terrific way to recover at the end of a long day. And easy stretching, light stretching, and then make sure that you get enough sleep, and make a point to do that before the end of the day, so that you sleep better, you wind down, and then you're fresh for the next day.
One other thing that I would add is in between your races, if you have like a crew base, we have a tent, but a place where you're all hanging out together, get off your feet, sit down deliberately, try not to be standing, and that is a good passive recovery between races.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have a mat, lay down and just close your eyes, and if you remember, like the Olympic champion pole vaulter Isinbayeva, when she's at the track, she actually had a mat and a blanket, and she used to lay down and just put the blanket over her head and just close her eyes during the track and field meet, just to rest and chill out, refocus. And if you're in a place where it's hot, then definitely get into a situation where it's cool if possible.
So that's some really good suggestions for recovery strategies. Now, since we're talking about racing, we had some feedback from a listener that came through to Marlene that was about how to pick the right races to do when you're planning a regatta. Marlene, give us the context. What did the listener ask?
Well, I was speaking with an athlete not long ago who is a sculler who typically rows her single. And in this particular championship regatta, she decided to be a little bit more devoted to her club rowing, let's put it that way. And so she decided that she would row more races in doubles and mixed doubles for this regatta. And since there was a conflict with the events, she decided not to race her single, which she is typically quite successful at. Now, what happened at this particular regatta was the partner that she was rowing with for two different age group events, it was the same partner, ended up rowing many more races in the regatta than she did. So by the time this woman came to her races, she was really tired, and it turned out not as well as she had expected. And she was quite disappointed in the overall outcome of the championship, because this partner didn't really live up to the competitive promise, let's put it this way. And she had not anticipated that this partner was going to row so many more races, rowing 5 races instead of 3 races, for example. And I think the lesson, and what we talked about a little bit, the lesson was you have to know what your team boat partners are also doing in terms of races and what kind of fitness level they're at, in terms of bringing their energy to your boat. And I just thought it was an interesting thing maybe for us to talk about, because many of our masters row in different combinations with different people. And when you're deciding to put your priority event aside for the sake of perhaps building up your club's points for the trophy or something like that, these are things that I think you need to be aware of. Have you encountered anything like that, Rebecca?
Yes, I had an actual situation for Henley Masters Regatta a few years ago. I had agreed to do a double with one partner and then something else with another partner. And I said to both of them, they said, should we do the double or whatever? And I said, yes. And then I said, I want to do one other race. And they both assumed I could do one other race. So I ended up in 4 races when I planned on being in 3 races. And each of them went several rounds, because Henley Masters is a competition. It's not a 6-lane racing format, so it's an elimination. And I had 1 race on the Friday and 6 1K races on the Saturday. So don't make that mistake again.
No, it's a lot, and it doesn't sound like a big difference. Oh, 3 events. It's 3 events to 4 events. But if they're multiple phases,
Rounds.
or if you have heats, you have
Semi.
semifinals, that one event may add 3 races to your weekend, which is a lot. And it's something I haven't encountered it all that often, but this was a particular woman who, tended to be always medaling in her single. And the fact that she gave up that event to row these other events was just something that didn't come out quite as expected, but a good lesson, and it's just something to take into consideration and talk to your partners, especially doubles partners, and find out what their racing schedule is compared to your racing schedule, and how much time they have. How many races are they rowing before they get to your race in the day? So
exactly. Look at last year's. Yeah, look at the regatta results from last year, and you can make a guess as to how many entries there will be. I do have another suggestion, which is different clubs organise things differently. But this past weekend, my club went to a local regatta. It's a reasonably low-key one, and we took with us. We had 6 experienced women, 2 experienced men, and 11 women who had come out of our Learn to Row program. So they've been rowing since February, but it was their very first regatta. Apart from, I spent an entire night writing a document called My First Regatta, which was great. When I was helping to select the crews, we had a few different challenges, and our club has a reasonably straightforward framework, which is when the regatta comes up, you sign up to say you'd like to go, and then the organizers ask you to pick one event as your priority. So if you have a quad and you want to do that quad, then the 4 of you all agree together that you will say that's your priority. And then we have a default situation, particularly for the lower key regattas, where the club will put you into crews and you will do what you're asked. We try to take account of preferences. Some people prefer sweep from sculling, some people prefer big boats from small boats. And I was helping out with this particular event, and it was an interesting challenge because, of course, 6 experienced women means you can't do an 8. Okay, so we agreed that we would do an 8 with 2 of the beginners and 6 experienced women. And even though that means it's perhaps less than optimal race or than our capabilities, we consider it an investment in the future of the group. And it gave 2 of the less experienced athletes the opportunity to see what a women's 8 could be like,
off the start.
Off the start, exactly. We didn't go quite full noise, but yeah. But it worked out really interestingly because, particularly with the beginners, the regatta only offered a few novice events. So they had novice coxed quads and novice coxed 4s, which are not age group differentiated. So that was kind of easy. So I had the opportunity to put 2 crews of 4 together and have them race 2 different categories. But then that had people left over because some of the women were less confident about sculling. We also had a novice coxswain, and we wanted to give her the opportunity, to try out a couple of races. And so I ended up creating age group events, particularly in quads, for some of the novices, even though they weren't novice category events. And it wasn't a perfect balance for every athlete, but everyone got at least 2 races. Some got 3. Everyone got a chance to row with a range of different people. I didn't like just have the same 4 people over and over, because I think that also adds to the opportunity to learn. And the coxswain did a fantastic job on the day.
The important thing is just to go down the course, to go through the process of warming up, getting ready, getting in the boat, being nervous, going to the start, just go down the course many times. So,
well, shall I tell you how the coach screwed up? The coach forgot to pack the sweep riggers for one of the 4s. So I had to race around to find another club to borrow a boat from. It's like, I've never done that before.
I think you
I
need
won't do it again.
You need a race day checklist, I think.
I had a race day checklist. I had a clipboard, and I didn't check carefully enough when we were loading the boat trailer. So my mistake. The girls were very polite about it, but they had a good race. And the other nice thing was that one of the 4s was a bit slow going up to the start, and bless them, the regatta rang all the way up to the start and said, "We've got one more crew. They're on their way."
They're on
and
their
they
way.
held the
Just
start
wait.
for them. Yeah.
But they got there. So
They got there. Exactly. So the framework, I think, is that as a club or a training group, it's best if you have a basic formula as to how you organize your racing, and it has to align with the objectives of the group, and different groups will have very different objectives, and different regattas are more and less important. So I strongly commend you to sit down and have a little strategy session which set the rules, and then it becomes that much easier, and hopefully the situation that Marlene's athlete got herself into won't arise. Now we want to move on to a performance topic. So each month in the Faster Masters rowing training program, one of our 6 modules is performance tips. And this month we've chosen blade depth as our performance topic. So Marlene, talk through the principles of how deep should your oars go in the water.
well, what inspired this topic was we did a video on blade depth drills, and I've actually renamed that video to level blade work drills, because the point of the exercises were to learn how to keep our blades level in the water and to stay quiet and not have our blades changing depths significantly through the water. But quite a discussion came up in the social media regarding blade depth. So we did a little bit of research to see what we could find out about it. And I have here the Rowing Biomechanics newsletter, which is put out by Dr. Valery Kleshnev, which is, he's quite a well-known rowing biomechanist. And his article on blade depth is pretty straightforward and gives us some great information. Some of the discussion that was going on in social media was in favor of rowing quite deep, and I've never really been in that school of thought, other than making sure that your blade is buried. When your blade is resting in the water, the top of the blade is usually going to just peek out of the water. And when you put a little pressure on the blade, maybe you slightly raise your handle, very slightly, but when you put pressure on the blade is going to bury. And that is about all that you really need, is that the blade is well covered, because you don't want too much of the shaft in the water, which is going to create drag. So I'm going to read a short little quote from Dr. Kleshnev's article about blade depth. And here he says, on average, every degree of deeper blade placement put 8 centimeters more of the shaft in the water. So the difference between the normal placement at 6 degrees, that's 6 degrees angle in the water, which is 40 centimeters of the shaft under the water. very deep placement of 12 degrees, 88 centimeters of the shaft in the water is about half a meter of extra shaft length in the water, creating extra drag resistance. Now, he gives some example of how he calculates the drag, and we don't have to be concerned about the exact formula here, but the result says, he says, and this is in bold, an extra 6 degrees of blade depth increases the drag resistance by 12 newtons during the drive. This consumes nearly 50 watts, which is the equivalent of 10% of a rower's power, and decreases the speed by 3.5%, which is about 14 seconds over a 2-kilometer race at 6 minutes and 40 seconds. This energy waste could be clearly seen during the drive as fountains of water coming from the shaft, and could be avoided or significantly decreased with better blade work. So I thought that was quite interesting, because if I go back to my past competitive career when I was training in a lightweight double, and we exactly had the problem of rowing too deep. And Norm Graff, who was my coach at the time, worked with us on our blade depth, and over our 2,000 meter course, our time improved by 15 seconds by the time we went to the next competition, which was in another month. And, we attributed that 15-second improvement in large by the fact that we had improved our blade depth. So it was quite interesting that he said 14 seconds over a 2K race. What he does give us some examples of a normal angle of the blade for a sweep would be 4.5 to 7.5 degrees, of a scull 6 to 9, but he really does consider normal placement 6 degrees, which is just buried. And his closing tips, which are something we can put into practice quite easily, it says, the simplest practical method to control blade depth is to wrap the oar shaft with bright electric tape at 40 centimeters from the blade inner edge. Then try to keep this mark at water level during the drive, which gives you an optimal 6 to 7 degree depth.
Well, that's very, very clear, and it's definitely something that I love low-tech solutions. So
yes,
you can
absolutely.
video yourself, or you can watch your own oars while you're paddling and see how you do. And of course, there are a whole load of drills, which are level blade work drills now, which we will put the link in the show notes, that people can go and have another look at those, which may be of assistance. Now, we also have noticed we love rowing innovations. I'm a complete geek when it comes to these things. And we spotted at the recent World Rowing Championships the lightweight men's single sculler from Italy, who had a fantastic regatta, won his final by Clearwater, Martino Goretti. And Martino was using a new design of oar. It was a standard oar with something called a Randall foil put onto the tip of the blade. And I'm just going to show you, sharing my screen, exactly what that looked like. So here is a picture of a Randall foil. And what you should be able to see is that it's a flange that sits at 90 degrees to the top edge of the oar. It's quite deep, and you can tape them on or epoxy them on, and they will enable you to hold your oar at the correct depth in the water, which is kind of cute. And it's the sort of innovation that I think is to be commended. Now, the link that's below in the show notes shows you exactly what where you can find out more about them. And it also has a special offer from one of the resellers of the Randall foils. So they are not sold by the manufacturer directly. He has chosen other retail partners to sell them. And the same design fits onto both a sculling or a sweep oar. So you could just take them and tape them onto some oars, go for a row, see what you think. But they make some claims about boat speed as well, Marlene. Can you remember the statistics?
I think they're claiming 5% increase in boat speed. So the commentator on the World Rowing final of the men's lightweight single said that Goretti says that he feels the foil makes the blade feel more stable in the water and has a little bit more resistance. And he personally liked that feel because he was coming from the lightweight 4. So he was used to a little bit of a heavier feel from a sweep blade, and he liked using the foil because it gave him a little bit more purchase on the water, which he felt was closer to the feeling he had in sweep. So that was what they were discussing in the commentary of the race. And the race is on the World Rowing website. They have all of the races there. So if one of the listeners is interested, they can click on that race and listen to it. And it's quite a good race, by the way. So
it is.
So anyway, I mean, it's one of those things that sounds like it's you can try it and see if it's better. And I think with the blade depth issue too, rigging can affect your oar, how your oars sit in the water and the angles. And if you're, you can go for this 40 centimeters and experiment with that. But whenever you make small changes like this, whether it's a foil or it's a rigging change, or you believe you should row at a different blade depth, have a time trial that you practice over and over again in certain conditions. And you know what? If your boat is moving better, then your boat is moving better. If your boat is not moving better, or it doesn't make it any difference, you need to have some way to look at that. And I think a really easy test is to do two 500-meter pieces, one in one direction, turn around one in the next direction, and then make a change, go out, do it again, one in one direction, one in the other direction, and have that as a consistent test. And that happens to be how Dick and Peter Dreisigacker test their prototype oars up at Craftsbury on the lake. And that's what they've been using as a test protocol for many, many years. So, over the years, they're able to compare things and see, does it make a positive difference or no difference or negative difference? So you can do that. You can be your own laboratory too.
Yeah, it's a really good way of doing it. Bear in mind, though, there are a lot of variables, and Marlene's advice about different weather conditions and a course that is really important. And the more skillful a rower you are, the better able you are to make comparisons in your testing. So my personal preference is to have a fixed rate as well, so that you know that you're going to be doing this maybe at 24, maybe at 28, because bear in mind, particularly with boat designs, the hull shapes are designed to plane over the top of the water when you're racing. And we definitely did this with a Web shaped boat compared with the FISA shaped boat, and we found one of them was brilliant at 37 and one was brilliant at 36. So we wouldn't have found that out if we hadn't have been trying it at different ratings as well. Now we have some customer feedback. The Faster Masters rowing program has been running now for 4 months, and we took the opportunity to just ask anybody who'd been using the program what they thought. And this has come from a gentleman who's 60 years old, a single sculler and a sweeper. And I said, what's the number one thing that Faster Masters is good at? And he says, the amazing thing about it is the program is relevant, by which I mean it works to a plan and it's very logical. And it actually has a lot of days each week on the program, not just a 3-day-a-week program, which I guess is a reflection of what he was working on previously. Mm-hmm. He then was asked to tell us what was least good about it. And he came up with the basic answer. He says, this is the real world. So number one, because the program is structured, it needs to be followed. And some days when the weather isn't so good, getting to the gym after the work is hard. And so he fails to complete the program sometimes. He then says, Some days the program is somewhat complex and I get out on the water and I forget some of it. So I come back in, I've forgotten what I was supposed to have done. And then on the third point, he says, sometimes on the big days, I literally run out of time. So that's a great piece of feedback. So Marlene, can you talk a little about the structure of the Faster Masters training program to answer those points?
Sure. First of all, those who do join the program, in the training module, there are program guidelines which tell you how to adapt the program if you're limited on time or you have to rearrange your schedule. But in terms of the program, it's organized in a weekly schedule. For the most part, it repeats through the month. You repeat the same weekly schedule. Now, sometimes I may have every other week alternate this workout, and I specify that. But the reason it repeats on a weekly basis is because, first of all, it usually takes you time to get to know a workout. And as Gordon mentioned, sometimes I forget what the workout is. And maybe some of these workouts might be a little bit more complex than you might get in another situation. I don't think they're over the top by any means, but the workouts are designed not just to build your fitness. The workouts are designed to build your skills, because we're training for events and we need to get fit. So we need to work in certain types of physiological categories, but we also need to practice things. We need to practice transitions. We need to practice accelerations. You may need to practice starts. You may need to practice changing rates. So there are a lot of skills and steering, and there are a lot of things you need to do in a race, and you have to practice those skills in your practice. So I like to build in skills in my workouts so that it's not just like, okay, row 5 minutes at, stroke rate 26 or whatever. It's minute 1, focus on this, or for this piece, focus on this, or, they have goals. I specify in this workout, today's technical focus is. So I think it maybe just takes a little bit of getting used to them, but there's also nothing wrong with jotting it down on a piece of paper and taping it on your rigger. Lots of people do that. People who have smartphones usually take a picture of their plan and just have it with them to check before they go out on the water.
So that's all good advice.
Yeah,
we've all done that.
Yeah. But because we are masters, and because the average club session is 60 minutes. Every workout is just, if you're efficient, if you're not wasting time on the dock, okay, every workout is designed to be completed within a 60-minute time frame, including warming up and cooling down. So, I do keep within that time frame, or if it's a weekend and I'd like people to do a longer row, I said, if you have time, do a row this longer if you have time. But the main workout is designed with warm up and cool down. And if you stick to it and don't waste time, you can complete that in 60 minutes. In terms of weather or schedule, people are always rearranging their schedules. And I've been working with Masters rowers for 20 years, and they were rearranging their schedules 20 years ago, and they're still rearranging their schedules. So one of the things that I do in the programs is I mark the priority days. So let's say Tuesday and Saturday are the key workouts of the week. I will mark those with an asterisk. And if for some reason the weather doesn't cooperate, you have an appointment, you don't row that day, you can move that workout to another day. The priority workouts are workouts that you should make sure to do every week. If you have to rearrange your schedule, it's better to skip something else and put that workout in. So there is room if, for example, you have to change your schedule, or you're tired, maybe you need an extra rest day. I would rather you take an extra rest day and then be able to do that priority session. with high quality. So we do define which days are your key workouts of the week so that you can adjust that if you need to adjust that.
Which is great. And a quick reminder, of course, if you want to try out the Faster Masters rowing program, we have an offer for you because you listen to us on the podcast. Each month, when you log in, there are always 2 months worth of workouts, the current month and the prior month. So you get 2 for the price of 1. And secondly, if within 15 days of joining, you find it's not for you, you can cancel and we'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. So that offer is only available to you guys. So thanks for your loyalty and listening to Marlene and myself. Now, our last little point is, back in the day, the very, very first program that Marlene and I did together was something called Faster Masters Gold. We did this as a membership program to receive 6 different chapters. Was it 7 or was it 8? I can't remember.
I think it was 8. I think it was 8 episodes altogether.
Yeah. 8 episodes of really detailed advice on a whole different range of aspects of Masters rowing. And we wrote these up as a series of ebooks so that they were available separate from the logins. And these are now on Kindle. So you can see that here we have a general guide to age and experience. Episode 1 is about rowing technique and sculling technique. Episode 3 here is about drills for blade work. Then we have developing racing starts, including 12 rowing exercises for racing starts. Developing stroke power was episode 4. Episode 2 is adapting technique to manage when our physical body doesn't help us. Then we have a 1K planning one and one about the role of testing and trials in rowing. So you'll find all of those just on the regular Amazon for your local country. They're available in Kindle Unlimited. So if you're enrolled in that program, you can get a hold of these books yourself. And you can also lend them to other people. So we tried to make that a good way to go to enable as many people as possible to get a hold of these. Now, these are not a training program as such. They are designed to be read as a standalone instructional manual and to give some broad guidance. And it'll help you have a toe in the water. If you're not yet ready to sign up to the Faster Masters rowing program, you could just buy the book and have a read and try and adapt and use some of Marlene's expertise and insight. I will say that each one of them comes with a private video, which is on YouTube. They range from about 30 to 50 minutes in length. And there's a full transcript of that video, plus there are additional articles. So if you go into Kindle and look, it explains what is in each part of the book. And you can also do that look inside thing where you can click on the cover of the book and turn a few pages and see what's in there. So that was 2 years ago, Marlene, maybe 2.5 years ago we did that together.
I think it was 2015.
There you go. Time flies when you're having fun. And look what we've come
2016. No, maybe it was 2016. But what I like a lot about that series is I think the conversations that we had were very good, and we discussed each topic quite thoroughly. And the transcript video is there, but and also to read it if you like it. But it was a very good series of conversations along with the written material that we prepared too.
Well, thank you. And I think that draws us to a close. Just a quick reminder, if you want to take up the special offers, go to rowing.chat/sponsors, and you will find on that sponsors page the details of everything that you need. So have a great September. Till next time. Bye-bye.